Welcome back to another episode of the Matty McCurdy program. Today, another solo episode. Each one of these episodes I base off of my weekly email that I send out each Monday. So if you're interested in learning more or kind of getting the initial take, the written version in your inbox at each Monday, go ahead and subscribe to that email. I'll link it in the podcast description or on YouTube or wherever you're watching this episode. And would love to have you there. Would love to have you receive those emails each week, every Monday. And it's just a lot of fun. It's growing really fast, and we got a lot of people joining the community. And we're excited to have you there. And really, these are just thoughts and ideas or things that I'm doing in my week to week and lessons I'm learning from whether it's guests I have on the podcast, from my interviews or discussions, or just ideas that come throughout the week. That's where these are um, coming from and where they're focused on. And so today I want to talk about, it's a new year, new me, and lots of new habits and goals being added to your yearly ambitions. And I wanted to share 3 things that have made a big difference in my annual goal making habits and the ones that really have stuck. Because I think there's a lot of times we add more goals and we add more into our already busy plate. And sometimes they don't go as planned and we take on more than we can handle. And that's when burnout comes. That's when we fall short on our goals. And then we feel really disappointed in ourselves. We feel like failures. We feel like we didn't succeed. We feel like we messed up. And in reality, it's probably we just didn't have the capacity to take on as much as we thought we could. And typically in the New Year's mantra, it's an idea of taking on more and saying yes to more things. And I want to preface this. If you're someone who's young and you don't have a lot going on, you don't have a lot of experience, you don't currently have a job, you don't have a purpose, say yes to things. Take opportunities. When those doors open, don't be saying no. I think there's a culture and an idea that you need to say no to more, you need to shut things down, and you need to protect your time. And I think that's true to a certain extent, but usually only if you have things you're currently focused on doing. And if your time is really worth something. If you're new to the game, you don't have experience, you don't know what you want to do, then why would you say no to things? If a door and an opportunity opened itself up for you, that's a great path to start exploring and find out if it's really something that you want to do. And so there are seasons in your life. And if you're in a season where you need to learn more, you need to experience more, and your time isn't necessarily valuable, then say yes to opportunities. Don't turn things down. And those are big open chances, and not everyone gets those. So take the big swing and go for it. Now, back to what we were talking about today. Sometimes we add too much to our plate and we're constantly trying to add more, especially around the New Year's. And so I want to share 3 things, like I said, that have really moved the needle for me. And I've been, really, in my opinion, stupid, simple things that have made the biggest impact. And it's funny, I think that's typically what usually ends up happening is it is the stupid, simple things that become the most impactful in our life. And it's funny because we often look over the simple things because we think that they're meaningless or they're so simple they couldn't possibly make the difference or move the needle. But really, the simple things is what leads to consistency. If it's simple, if it's easy, you're more likely to do it more consistently. And it's consistency that leads to results. And so I just want you to think about that as we're going through these. If they seem really dumb or silly, or you're like, I've done some version of that, well, it's meant to be simple and stupid and easy because those easy, simple, stupid things is what leads to you being consistent and getting the results you want. And so I want to go over the first one. The first one is get a big calendar that you can plan your whole year out. I don't think people realize the value of this. I surely didn't until I started doing it. And I'm a big believer in calendars. I have my Google Calendar, I have my Apple Calendar. I bounce between the two. And I'm a big believer that every day you should be plotting out what you're doing on your calendar. I like to time block. I like to say, this is how much time I'm going to spend on this specific activity. And then I really try to stick to it. Not perfect, obviously, but that helps me. And I think that's a really important lesson and skill to learn. I also think it's important to plan your week. If you can, on a Sunday or a Saturday or whatever day you've got time, plot out what are the goals you want to accomplish, what tasks do you want to achieve in your week. And then you've kind of set yourself up for success. That's also another invaluable skill, just super valuable for what you're trying to accomplish. Because if you have a plan, if you know what you're going to do and what you're going to spend your time on, you're less likely to let life and people in your life and distractions in your life take away from your time. And that seems to be, at least in my opinion, that seems to be what happens the most is we allow life to live us and we don't go live life, right? We allow for the things going on externally to interrupt what we want to accomplish. And the only person who can solve that is us. So back to the big calendar, beyond the calendar that you have on your phone, which I think is great for plotting out your week or your day, it's sometimes hard to look at it from a grand scale. And granted, I really like visualization. I like to be able to see everything on one big thing. So I like a big written out calendar. I like to get a whiteboard version that shows the entire year. And then from there, I really try to plot out what are the big things I want to accomplish that year, whether that's fun activities, whether that's trips, whether that's competitions like running, or this year I'm trying to do a bodybuilding show. So whatever it is, I like to plot those out in advance because then you can start to backtrack and go, okay, well, what's going to be required to achieve that goal? Well, I've got to plan in advance this X, Y, and Z. I got to make sure I train on these days. I got to meet with so-and-so so I can accomplish that. I got to meet with the travel planner so I know where I'm going and when I'm going to be there. I've got this huge business meeting and this goal that I'm trying to reach. And if it's for business purposes, same thing, right? I want to, have this goal by this time of this year. And what are the things that you need to do to accomplish that? And so from a very big picture, you can start to prioritize your time appropriately to achieve the things you really want to reach. And too often, I think we can plan short-sightedly because we live our lives in these kind of increments of time. Do we really know how to answer the question of what do I want in 10 years? Who do I want to be in 10 years? Who do I want to be in 5 years? That's a really hard question because we don't know all the variables and we start to get stuck in the, how do I accomplish that? Right? It's the how do I accomplish that kind of gets us stuck because we don't know how to plan that many variables. It's just a human thing. We don't have the capability to process that many variables. And so it's really hard to plan that far in advance. But what you don't realize is if you take the time to see it visually and go, okay, well, this is what I want, right? This is what I want. This is why I want it. You can figure out all the how. You can figure out the how you're going to accomplish it once you know what you want and why you want it. And that's really the thing you got to answer. Usually we do it backwards. We go, well, how am I going to accomplish these different things? How am I going to accomplish this task I want? And then our brain goes into stress mode, trying to figure out all the variables of, well, if I'm trying to climb Mount Everest, I have to make sure I have this, and I have to pack the right gear, and I have to get a permit, and I have to get a coach, and I have to, and suddenly you're like, I don't know how I fit that in with everything else. But if you were to plot out, you know what, I want to climb Mount Everest on this date. Here's why I want to do it. Here's my reasoning, my intention for wanting to accomplish that goal. Well, now I can work through the process of how to accomplish that. But it has to start with what you want and why you want it. And I think that's the beauty of the big calendar. I like get a whiteboard calendar because, you make mistakes, you write something there. And once again, you can change things. That's what I think people don't realize is sometimes we lock ourselves into this thought process that once I decide, there's no going back. I'm locked in, and I think it's good to be disciplined. It's good to commit, but realize that life changes, and you can always, there's rarely any decision you make in life that you can't change and you can't walk away from and you can't make a new decision. And realizing that earlier than later, I think is a big blessing and is going to make you much more successful in life because you realize that you can make mistakes, you can change your mind, you can go a different route, and there is no one set thing. And once you realize it, you're free to start making choices and changing and adapting as you go. But I think once again, it really starts with, what do I want? Make that decision. Why do I want it? What's your intention? And then we start figuring out the how. And the nice part is once you know what you want, once you know why you want it, it's much easier to convince people to come along with you and help you accomplish the how. Get a big calendar. I love doing this. It's a great start to my year. I just plot it all out. I wish I had it in here. I don't. It's in a different room. But I love to plot it out and I just write down all the different things throughout the month. And you realize quickly, wow, like I am doing a lot throughout my year. And it's a great way at the end of the year. I enjoyed taking my calendar from last year down because you realize how much you really did accomplish. And of course, you may not know all the things you're going to want to do at the beginning of your year. But the nice part is throughout the months as you hang it on your wall or wherever you keep it, you can adapt and change and add things to that calendar, add the goals that you want to accomplish, and just add to it and make it better. So that's my first habit hack. And I think it really sets your year up for success. It sets you up for success and it leads to you being able to really accomplish and know. It's more of a practice of letting yourself know what you want. And for the people who are very business oriented or business minded, who spend a lot of their time working and working and working, which is important. I think this is a good practice on helping you realize that you need to put in the fun things of life too. What do you want to do? Do you want to travel? Do you want to get out of the house? Do you want to do a competition? Do you want to travel? Do you want to take a hike? Those are important things too. And I think too many people let those moments get, once again, taken up by life rather than taking life by the reins and choosing to live it for themselves and achieving what they would like. And so they look back on their life with regret because they didn't take the time to really plot out the things beyond just the day-to-day mundane things that they were doing. So that's the first hack. I won't go into it too much more. Get a big calendar, plot out your year. You'll be very happy that you did. The second one is have a morning routine. And I know we hear about this a lot. It's very publicized and very probably overcreated online, and you see it on social media. I've got a slightly different take. I'm not a big believer in 30-step morning routine where you wake up and roll out of bed and drink salt water and go take a cold plunge and then, meditate for 45 minutes and then do red light and then get in the sauna. And I think there's benefits to all those things depending on what you're working towards, especially on the health benefit side of things. And if you fit those in, great. That's a wonderful thing. I'm more into the belief of what's functional and what, once again, is simple so you can be consistent. And here are really my main five steps that I like to take. Wake up on time. Pick a time, try to wake up as best you can to that time and commit to that, right? And so if you go to bed late, try to still wake up at that time because hopefully then you'll be tired that next night and you'll fall asleep a little bit earlier and then you'll be able to wake up and have a better experience. So wake up on time, whatever it is, pick it, stick to it, try your best with it. Next, get some light in your eyes, right? People like to have the natural light from the sun or some morning light. But I think also if you just go into a different room where there's light that kind of wakes you up and gets you going, I think it's really positive. Too many people, I think, wake up to their alarm and then they sit in their bedroom for a few minutes and it's dark and they're still near their bed and then you fall back asleep. And so getting that morning light into your eyes, waking your system up, getting it primed and ready to go, I think is very crucial to waking up the body. And they talk about circadian rhythm and all those different things that help, track your sleep and monitor your system and all those things. I don't know enough detail to really tell you that. But what I do know is it does keep your body on track and it gets you woken up. The next one, hydrate. I think that's really important. You've been asleep all night. Usually you're not trying to drink a ton of water right before bed because it makes it hard to sleep and wake up because you have to pee. So hydrating, I think, is huge. It really gets your system going. I found that when I've done this, I feel so much better, right? There's too often where I will not drink anything until midday and I wonder why I'm feeling sluggish and my brain's not working. I just can't think straight and I can't focus. And I found that when I hydrate in the morning, I really take the time to get my body properly hydrated, give it the fluids it needs to function, which is huge. I can think better. I can focus better. I can function better. And especially if you're training, if you're an athlete, you're doing anything physical, those fluids and hydration become so key to properly training and really taking your performance, whatever it is, to the next level. And if you don't have those resources in your tank, in your body, when you're training, you're going to feel depleted. And it can really stack up. You may not feel it day one, but day 2, day 3, day 4, you start to really feel it. So make sure you hydrate. Take the time to properly get those fluids in and drink water. And that could be also just a pinch of salt in your water too. Get some sodium, some electrolytes. If you take, the different electrolyte packets, I think that's great too. But don't overcomplicate it. I don't think it needs to be super complex. Just make sure you're hydrating. The next step, and let me make sure I get it right. The next step is move your body, right? You want to get some motion going. You want to get the blood flowing. And I've heard a lot of different perspectives here when it comes to cortisol spiking in the morning. But from what I understand, I think it's very healthy to have a slight cortisol spike in the morning. That's what kind of gets your body and system going. I don't think you want to spike it to an outrageous level. However, I think getting movement, right? Getting up just alone, going from the state of being asleep to then being awake is a giant shift in cortisol as is, right? It's a stressor to the body. And cortisol kind of gets a bad rep for stress, and stress gets a bad rep, but there is such thing as good stress, right? And movement, working out, is one of those stresses. You can take it too far. You can have too much stress on your body, which leads to overtraining, which leads to soreness, which leads to poor sleep. But I think having some sort of movement in the morning, whether that's a morning walk, whether that's on the treadmill, whether that's doing stair steppers, whether that's going and doing your lift early in the morning, I think that is a good cortisol bump and a good stressor on the body that wakes you up that sets your day up right, because what you really don't want to have is you don't want to have a high cortisol level as you're trying to go to sleep. You want to begin those cortisol levels down in the evening so that you can get good rest, lean into your night, removing, and that's where you start hearing about removing blue light. That's where you start hearing about removing working out even in the evening, because some people, when they work out super late, it spikes your cortisol because you've been moving and you've been intensely working out. And then it's hard to get your body to fall asleep. So removing those cortisol stressors in the evening allows you to get better sleep, which then leads into your morning, where you should be upping your cortisol a little bit so that you have a normal cortisol flow. And it's been shown that you're supposed to have a cortisol spike earlier in the day and then hopefully can taper that down as your evening goes. I'm not the best at that. You get working on projects, you get working on the computer, you editing a podcast, whatever it may be, you start to get your mind active, and that doesn't necessarily lead to lower your cortisol levels or lowering your stress. But if you can, that's the goal. So move your body a little bit. It doesn't have to be anything intense. I oftentimes like to work out in the morning, and I feel like it just sets me up right. But you don't have to do that. You could easily go outside and take a walk, get on the treadmill, or even stretch, right? Stretch a little bit, move around, whatever you need to do for your level. Do it, make it happen. And the last one, and this is a total optional, this sign I like. I'm a big caffeine person. I like caffeine. I don't drink coffee necessarily, but I like energy drinks. I have gum that I get caffeine for. I find that caffeine is a good stimulant as long as I'm not overtaking it. Big fan of caffeine early in the morning to kind of boost your system, boost your cortisol a little bit, and throw off sleep. However, I do like to wait an hour or two before sleeping, or after waking up from sleep. I don't like to take it right away. I want my system to naturally wake up so that later on I don't have a crash. And obviously, I don't want to be taking caffeine too late in the day. I'm not perfect on that, but I don't want to take it too late in the day, because then it's harder to fall asleep as we get closer to the end of the day, because caffeine is going to block those receptors that help you fall asleep. So taking that earlier in the morning, getting the system primed and ready to go, those are my 5 steps. So wake up on time, get natural light in the eyes to wake up the system. I missed one. Skip the scroll. It's too often you take your phone into bed with you, or you take your phone like right after you stop the alarm, you grab your phone, and the first thing you do is you hop on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, whatever it is. And suddenly, you find yourself wasting a ton of time, wasting so many hours just scrolling. Maybe it's 45 minutes, 15, 20, 30 minutes that you could have been utilizing elsewhere and getting your day started. But I found also that, for my brain at least, kind of short circuits, because you're instantly tapping into that fragmented attention span where you're just getting little hits of dopamine from this short media content that our brain loves to absorb. And suddenly you're not really getting your brain locked in and focused on your day. You're kind of jabbing into the system a little early and short circuiting it, the best way I can put it, right? You're getting your brain to think in a very short attention span type of way. And if you're going to be doing anything in your day that requires attention and focus, why would you start your day off being locked into this, very, what's the right term? Very short circuited, dopamine heavy, low attention span format. And I found that does not work for me. I find that it sets my day up for failure. And I find myself, because you're getting a dopamine hit from all these little pieces of content that your brain loves, I find myself even more enticed later in my day when I'm trying to focus to go back to it. And I'm constantly reaching for my phone and trying to get that hit of little short attention span dopamine. And it just doesn't work for me. So those are my things. Wake up on time, get natural light, skip the scroll, hydrate, move your body. And then if you like to caffeinate. And I find that's a great, simple system. It literally takes, maybe 30 minutes max if you're getting if you're really doing a lot with the movement. But waking up, getting light and hydrating and skipping the scroll is actually removing something. That takes maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. And then if you choose to go work out or move your body or whatever it is, if your work is an hour, so an hour and 15 minutes to your day at max, that's something I feel like you can do simply and consistently. And I know it's worked really well for me. It's not complicated, but it is doable. And lastly, be willing to say no. And this is, like I said, if you're somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience in your life, you're brand new to the game, you're super young, don't listen to this, right? Say yes to as many opportunities as you can. Take the opportunities, take the experiences. And if people are reaching out to you to offer those experiences, let them be your mentor. Let them show you the way. Learn from them as much as you can, because that is going to jumpstart your experience. That is going to give you connections to the real world and give you those inroads that you probably wouldn't have otherwise. So take those experiences. But if you are someone who's already got a lot on your plate, be willing to say no. I know I've struggled with this my entire life. I love ideas. I love being involved. I love taking on more than I can chew and going after and chasing my dreams. So that's my advice to you is be willing to say no to all the different invitations and ideas and things that are coming your way that are going to drain your ability to focus on what you want to accomplish and drain you from being able to accomplish those things that you put on your big calendar right at the beginning, right? If you spend all your time doing what everybody else wants you to do or living letting life, guide your plans, you're not going to have any time to really accomplish what you set out to do. So be willing to say no, focus on the things that really matter and that you want to accomplish and start living life. Stop letting life live you. And I try to take that into everything I do. And I try to think about that a lot. Am I letting life dictate my decisions or am I choosing my decisions and I'm going to live the life I want? Once you start doing that, you feel free. You feel like you have the ability to choose and you feel like you have the ability to plot your own course. And that's what we really want in life is the ability to feel fulfilled and have the freedom to choose. But it requires you to make choices. It requires you to identify what you want, why you want it. And I promise you, once you do that, all the other things work out and you're able to figure out the how. That's all I got for you guys today. I hope those are super helpful. And those really, I hope, are simple and easy so that you can be consistent and achieve what you want. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. I hope you keep tuning in. I hope these are helpful and I'll see you next time.